Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English in Moments. I'm Elena, your host. Today, we're beginning something truly special. If you have been studying English for a while, you know that phrasal verbs are often the biggest barrier to fluency. You memorize lists, but you forget them the next day. Why? Because our brains are not designed to remember lists. They are designed to remember stories. In this special masterclass, we are going to learn 75 essential phrasal verbs, but we aren't going to use a textbook. We are going to build a world. We are going to follow the life of a woman named Sarah, who leaves everything behind to start a new life in a dusty old bookstore. This script is designed to be a deep dive masterclass. That means I will be narrating the story, but I will frequently pause the action to act as your coach. We will dissect the vocabulary, I will give you extra examples, and most importantly, I will ask you to shadow me, to speak out loud. This is how we move these words from your passive memory into your active vocabulary. So please, get comfortable, perhaps grab a notebook, and let's immerse ourselves in the story of the Old Bookstore. Our story begins on a Tuesday, typically the most mundane day of the week. Sarah sat in her cubicle on the 45th floor of a corporate tower in downtown Chicago. The fluorescent lights hummed above her head, a sound she had grown to hate. She was staring at a spreadsheet filled with numbers that seemed to dance and blur before her eyes. Sarah leaned back in her chair and rubbed her temples. She realized with a heavy heart that she was completely burned out. Let's pause right here at our first major phrasal verb, burnout. This is an incredibly common phrase in today's fast-paced world. To be burned out means to be in a state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion caused by prolonged stress. Imagine a fire that has consumed all its fuel. There is nothing left but ash. That is the feeling of being burned out. It isn't just being tired after a long day. It is a deep structural fatigue where you feel you cannot continue. Grammatically, burnout can be a verb, but it is often used as an adjective in the past participle form, burned out. You might say, I am burned out. It can also be a noun, burnout, written as one word. For example, teacher burnout is a serious problem. I want you to practice this with me. Listen to the rhythm and intonation, and then repeat after me. I've been working 60 hours a week and I'm completely burned out. Go ahead, say it out loud. I'm completely burned out. Excellent. Back to Sarah. She had been working at this insurance firm for 6 years. She had tried to stick it out, hoping things would get better, but they never did. To stick it out means to continue doing something difficult or unpleasant to the end. It implies endurance. You might stick out a boring movie or stick out a tough semester at university. Sarah had tried to stick it out, but she had reached her limit. Her boss, Mr. Henderson, was a difficult man. He would constantly pick on her for minor mistakes. To pick on someone means to criticize, punish, or treat someone unfairly, often repeatedly. It's a form of bullying. Mr. Henderson would walk by her desk and find the smallest error just to pick on her. Sarah had decided she was no longer willing to put up with his behavior. Here we have a very famous three-part phrasal verb, put up with. This phrase is essential for advanced English speakers. To put up with means to tolerate or endure something or someone that is annoying or unpleasant without complaining. You might say, I don't know how you put up with that noise, or I can't put up with this traffic anymore. Let's practice this one because the linking sounds are tricky. The T in put links to the U in up. It sounds like put-up. Try saying it. Put up with. Now, let's use it in a full sentence that relates to Sarah's feelings. Repeat after me. I simply cannot put up with this stress any longer. One more time with feeling. I cannot put up with this stress any longer. Sarah made a decision. She opened a blank document on her computer and began to type. It was short, professional, and final. She printed it, signed it with a steady hand, and walked toward Mr. Henderson's office. She was going to hand in her resignation. To hand in means to give something to a person in authority. It implies a transfer of responsibility or submission. You hand in homework to a teacher, you hand in a report to a client, and you hand in your notice to a boss. Note that this is a separable phrasal verb. You can say, hand in my homework, or hand my homework in. Both are correct. Sarah knocked on the glass door. Come in, Mr. Henderson grunted, not looking up from his phone. Sarah walked in, placed the letter on his desk, and said, I'm handing in my 2 weeks' notice. Mr. Henderson finally looked up, surprised. He tried to argue, but Sarah stood firm. She turned around and walked out of the office. As she reached the elevator, she felt a strange sensation. She thought she might pass out. To pass out means to lose consciousness or faint. It is usually temporary, caused by heat, shock, or exhaustion. Sarah leaned against the cold metal wall of the elevator, taking deep breaths so she wouldn't pass out. Her heart was racing. She had actually done it. She was free. She exited the building and walked to her car. She sat in the driver's seat and told herself to calm down. To calm down is to become less angry, excited, or anxious. It is the action of lowering your emotional temperature. If you are angry, you need to calm down. If you are panicked, you need to calm down. I want to give you a quick pronunciation tip here. In the word calm, the L is often silent or very soft in many English dialects. It sounds more like calm. So we say calm down. Try shadowing this sentence with me. Take a deep breath and calm down. Everything will be okay. Once her hands stopped shaking, Sarah started the car. She wasn't just quitting a job, she was leaving the city entirely. She was planning to move back to the countryside. We use move back when returning to a place where we previously lived. Sarah had grown up in a small town called Oakhaven, a place filled with trees and silence. She had left Oakhaven when she was 18, eager to get away from the slow pace of small-town life. To get away means to escape. But now, at 30, she didn't want to escape the quiet. She wanted to find it. She wanted to move back. She had inherited a property in Oakhaven from her grandmother. It was an old commercial building that had been closed for years. Sarah hadn't seen it in a decade. She needed to check out the condition of the place. To check out means to examine, investigate, or look at something to see what it is like. This is a very versatile verb. You can check out a book from the library, you can check out of a hotel, or you can simply check out a new movie. In this context, Sarah needed to inspect the building. The drive to Oakhaven took 4 hours. As she drove, she listened to the radio to tune out her worries. To tune out means to stop paying attention to something or to ignore the surrounding environment. Sarah tuned out the traffic noise and tuned out her fears about money. She just focused on the road. As she approached the town, the sun was beginning to go down. To go down in this context means to set. The sun goes down in the west. It can also mean to decrease, like prices going down. But here we are talking about the sunset. The sky turned a beautiful shade of purple and orange. Sarah navigated the familiar streets. She had to slow down as she entered the town square. To slow down means to reduce speed. It is the opposite of speed up. We often use this metaphorically too. If you are working too hard, your friends might tell you to slow down. She was looking for the address, 14 Willow Street. It was getting dark, making it hard to make out the house numbers. To make out is a phrasal verb related to perception. It means to manage to see, hear, or understand something with difficulty. If a sign is far away, you might struggle to make it out. If someone is whispering, you might struggle to make out what they are saying. Sarah squinted through the windshield, trying to make out the numbers on the mailboxes. Finally, she saw it. A faded sign that read, Willow Creek Books. She pulled up in front of the building. To pull up when driving means to bring the vehicle to a stop at a specific point. You pull up to the curb, or you pull up to the drive-through window. Sarah turned off the engine and just sat there for a moment, looking at the building. It looked sad and neglected. The windows were dirty and the paint was peeling. She got out of the car and walked to the front door. She had to look for the key in her purse. To look for means to try to find something. Remember the difference between look at and look for. You look at a movie, but you look for your lost keys. Sarah dug through her bag, pushing aside tissues and receipts, frantically looking for the heavy iron key. She found it and inserted it into the lock. It was stiff. She had to wiggle it to get it to work. Finally, the lock clicked, and she pushed the door open. A smell of old paper and dust wafted out. While waft out isn't a primary phrasal verb we are studying today, it gives you a great image of the smell drifting into the fresh air. She stepped inside and tried to turn on the lights. To turn on means to activate a machine or light, usually with a switch. Click. Nothing happened. Click, click. Still nothing. The shop remained in darkness. Sarah sighed. She realized the electricity had been cut off. When a utility service like water, gas, or electricity is cut off, it means the supply has been stopped, usually because of non-payment or a technical fault. It can also be used in conversation. If you are speaking on the phone and the call drops, you can say, "We were cut off." In Sarah's case, the power company had cut off the service years ago. She took out her phone and used the flashlight to look around. To look around means to explore an area to see what is there. It implies a casual inspection. You might go into a store and say to the assistant, "I'm just looking around, thanks." Sarah swept the beam of her flashlight across the room. It was a disaster. Piles of books were scattered on the floor. Shelves were leaning dangerously. There were cobwebs everywhere. Sarah felt a lump in her throat. She had quit her job for this? She wondered if she had messed up. To mess up means to make a mistake or to handle a situation badly. It is a slightly informal phrase. If you fail a test, you might say, I really messed up. Sarah looked at the dusty chaos and thought, I have messed up. This is too much work. But then she remembered why she left Chicago. She remembered the burnout. She remembered Mr. Henderson. She took a deep breath. She wasn't going to give up yet. To give up means to stop trying, to surrender. It is one of the most powerful phrasal verbs to learn because it relates to perseverance. Don't give up is a common phrase of encouragement. Sarah decided she would sleep in her car tonight and start fresh in the morning. She would sort out the electricity problem tomorrow. To sort out means to organize, resolve, or find a solution to a problem. You sort out your laundry, you sort out a misunderstanding with a friend, or you sort out a technical issue. As she walked back to her car, she heard a voice. Hello? Is someone there? Sarah spun around. An elderly woman was standing on the porch of the house next door. She was wearing a thick wool cardigan and holding a cat. I didn't think anyone would ever turn up at this old place, the woman said. To turn up means to arrive or appear, often unexpectedly or after a delay. You might say, he finally turned up at the party an hour late. Sarah smiled nervously. I'm Sarah, she said. My grandmother used to own this shop. The woman's face lit up. Oh, you're Margaret's granddaughter. I'm Mrs. Higgins. I've lived next door for 40 years. I used to drop by every day for tea when your grandmother was alive. To drop by means to visit someone informally for a short time, usually without an appointment. It's a very friendly verb. Feel free to drop by any time is a hospitable thing to say. Mrs. Higgins walked down the steps. You can't sleep in your car, dear. It's going to freeze tonight. Come inside. I have a spare room. You can crash at my place. Now, crash is a slang term, often used without, to crash out or just crash, meaning to go to sleep quickly because you are very tired or to stay at someone's house temporarily. Sarah was hesitant, but she was so exhausted she could barely stand. Thank you, Sarah said. That is very kind. Don't mention it, Mrs. Higgins said. We can catch up in the morning. To catch up means to exchange news with someone you haven't seen in a while. It brings you up to date with their life. Sarah followed Mrs. Higgins into her warm, bright house. She felt a wave of relief. She had arrived. She had a long road ahead of her, but for tonight, she was safe. Sunlight streamed through the lace curtains of Mrs. Higgins' guest room the next morning. Sarah opened her eyes and stretched. She had slept deeply, the kind of sleep you only get when you are far away from city traffic. She woke up at 7 o'clock, but she didn't get up until 7:30. Let's pause immediately here, because this is one of the most common confusions for English learners: the difference between wake up and get up. To wake up is the mental action of regaining consciousness. Your eyes open and you are no longer asleep. To get up is the physical action of getting out of bed and standing on your feet. You can wake up at 6 a.m., but stay in bed scrolling on your phone and not get up until 6:30 a.m. Let's practice this distinction. I want you to shadow me. We will do 2 sentences. First, I woke up early, but I stayed in bed. Go ahead. I woke up early, but I stayed in bed. Now, the second part. I finally got up to make coffee. Your turn. I finally got up to make coffee. Perfect. After a quick breakfast of toast and tea with Mrs. Higgins, Sarah was ready to head back to the shop. To head back means to return to a place you were previously. Head acts as a verb here, meaning to move in a direction. Sarah thanked Mrs. Higgins and walked across the damp grass to the bookstore. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. In the daylight, the shop looked even worse than it had the night before. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light. The smell of mildew was strong. Sarah put her hands on her hips. She knew she had to clean up before she could do anything else. Now, you might ask, why do we say clean up instead of just clean? Is there a difference? Yes, there is a subtle one. Clean is the general action. I clean my house. But adding up gives the verb a sense of completion and thoroughness. To clean up implies organizing a mess or restoring order to a specific area until it is completely finished. You clean up a spill. You clean up your room. Sarah decided to start off with the main room. To start off, or sometimes start out, means to begin a process in a particular way. You might start off a meeting with a joke, or start off your career as an intern. Sarah decided to start off by removing the trash. She grabbed a roll of large black plastic bags she had bought at the gas station. Her goal was to clear out the junk that was cluttering the floor. To clear out means to make a room or container empty by removing things. It emphasizes the result, an empty space. If your closet is full of old clothes, you need to clear it out. Sarah began to work. She found old newspapers from 1995, broken coffee mugs, and piles of yellowed receipts. She started throwing them away. To throw away is a standard phrasal verb meaning to dispose of something as trash. You can also say throw out. They are interchangeable. I threw away the apple core, or I threw out the apple core. Grammatically, this is a separable phrasal verb. That means the object can go in the middle. You can say, throw the box away, or throw away the box. However, and this is a very important grammar rule, if you use a pronoun like it or them, it must go in the middle. You have to say, throw it away. You cannot say, throw away it. That sounds very unnatural to a native speaker. Let's practice this rule. Imagine you are holding a piece of trash. I want you to say, I don't need this. I'm going to throw it away. Listen to the link between throw and it. Throw it away. Try it. I'm going to throw it away. Excellent. As Sarah worked, the bags began to pile up by the door. To pile up means to accumulate. It describes things gathering in a large amount, one on top of another. It can be physical, like trash bags piling up, or abstract, like work piling up on your desk. Sarah looked at the mountain of black bags and wiped her forehead. The dust was making her sneeze, but she was making progress. However, amidst the trash, there were large items she couldn't just put in a bag. There was a broken armchair with springs poking out, and a rusted metal rack. She needed to get rid of these large items. To get rid of is one of the most useful phrases in English. It is broader than throw away. To get rid of something means to take action so that you are free of something unwanted. You can get rid of an old sofa by selling it, donating it, or trashing it. You can also get rid of a bad habit or get rid of a headache. Sarah dragged the heavy armchair out to the curb. She hoped the garbage collectors would take it. "I am so glad to get rid of that," she muttered to herself. She went back inside. She needed to wipe down the shelves. To wipe down means to clean a surface with a cloth, usually to remove dust or liquid. Again, the up and down in phrasal verbs often add a sense of direction or completion. You wipe down a table, wipe down a counter, or wipe down a whiteboard. Sarah found an old rag and a bucket of water and began scrubbing. While she was wiping down a shelf near the back of the shop, she came across a small wooden box tucked behind a row of books. To come across means to find something by chance. You weren't looking for it, it just appeared. This is different from find out, which is usually for information. You come across objects. You might say, "I came across my old high school yearbook yesterday." Sarah felt a spark of curiosity. She sat down on the floor to look into the box. Now, to look into usually means to investigate a problem or a crime, like a detective. But literally, it can just mean to look inside something. Here, let's focus on the investigative meaning, because it appears often in business. If a client complains, you tell them, "I will look into that matter immediately." Inside the box, she found a collection of old letters tied with a ribbon. They were letters her grandfather had written to her grandmother during the war. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. She almost threw the box away by mistake. She was so glad she had decided to go through the shelves carefully. To go through implies a detailed search or examination. If you have a stack of documents, you go through them one by one. It implies patience and attention to detail. Sarah realized she couldn't just rush. She had to go through everything to ensure she didn't destroy anything valuable. She decided she would hang on to the letters. To hang on to or hold on to means to keep something, often when you might otherwise give it up. You might hang on to an old sweater because it's comfortable, or hang on to a souvenir because of the memory. Sarah placed the box gently on a clean table. "I'm going to hang on to these," she whispered. By mid-afternoon, Sarah was beginning to run out of energy. We mentioned this briefly in the intro, but let's go deeper. To run out of implies a depletion of supply. You can run out of milk, run out of money, run out of time, or run out of patience. Sarah had been working for 6 hours straight without a break. She stood up, her knees cracking. She looked around. The main floor was clear of trash. The shelves were wiped down. The air felt lighter. She had done a lot, but the old wallpaper was peeling off the walls in long strips. She walked over to a corner and pulled at a loose piece. It ripped off easily. She realized she would have to tear down the old wallpaper before she could paint. To tear down usually applies to buildings or structures, meaning to demolish. They are going to tear down the old stadium. But we can also use it for removing things attached to walls, like wallpaper or posters. It implies a forceful removal. Sarah ripped off a large strip. It was satisfying. Suddenly, her phone rang. It was her mother. "Hi, Sarah, I'm just calling to check up on you," her mother's voice chirped. To check up on someone means to contact them or visit them to see if they are okay or doing what they are supposed to do. Parents check up on children. Supervisors check up on employees. "I'm fine, Mom," Sarah said, leaning against the clean shelf. "Just tired. I've been cleaning all day." "Well, don't wear yourself out," her mother warned. To wear out means to make someone extremely tired. It is very similar to tire out. If you work too hard, you wear yourself out. If you have active children, they might wear you out. Importantly, worn out is also used for objects. If your shoes have holes in them, they are worn out. "I won't," Sarah promised. "I'm just going to finish this wall and then stop." "Okay, let me know how it turns out," her mother said. To turn out refers to the result of a process. Her mother wanted to know the final result of the cleaning or the renovation. "The cake turned out delicious," or "the project turned out well." Sarah hung up the phone. She looked at the wall. She decided to push on for one more hour. To push on means to continue with an activity in a determined way, despite difficulties or fatigue. She wanted to finish stripping the wallpaper in this section. An hour later, covered in dust and glue, Sarah finally decided to pack it in. This is a great idiomatic phrasal verb. To pack it in means to stop doing something for the day, usually work. It comes from the idea of packing up your tools. You might say to your colleagues at 5 p.m., "I'm tired. I think I'm going to pack it in." Sarah locked the door of the shop. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the street. She walked back to Mrs. Higgins' house. Her muscles ached, but her mind was quiet. She felt good. She had cleared away the past to make room for the future. To clear away is very similar to clear out, but it focuses on removing items from a surface or area to make it tidy. You clear away the dishes after dinner. She entered Mrs. Higgins' kitchen. "My goodness," Mrs. Higgins exclaimed. "You look like you've been in a coal mine. You need to wash up." To wash up can mean two things depending on where you are. In British English, washing up usually refers to washing the dishes. But in American English, and in this context of personal hygiene, to wash up means to wash your hands and face. Sarah laughed. She looked in the mirror and saw a smudge of dirt on her nose. "Yes," Sarah said, "I definitely need to wash up." It was Monday morning. Sarah stood in the center of the empty shop. The trash was gone and the walls were stripped bare, revealing the plaster underneath. But now that the clutter was gone, the structural problems were obvious. She looked up at the ceiling and saw a dark water stain spreading in the corner. It had rained heavily during the night, and the roof was clearly leaking. Sarah sighed. She climbed up a ladder to take a closer look, but she realized immediately that this was beyond her skills. She couldn't fix a roof. She needed to call in a professional. Let's stop at call in. You know the verb to call, meaning to phone someone. But to call in has a specific professional nuance. It means to ask a person with special skills or authority to come and help you. You might call in a plumber, call in a doctor, or call in the police. It implies that the situation requires an expert. In the business world, if a project is failing, a manager might call in a consultant. Sarah searched online for local carpenters and found a man named Mark who had good reviews. She dialed his number and explained the situation. He promised to stop by later that afternoon. To stop by is very similar to drop by, which we learned earlier. It means to visit a place for a short time, usually on your way to somewhere else. I'll stop by your office to sign the papers. True to his word, Mark showed up at 2 p.m. To show up means to arrive. It is a very common synonym for arrive, but it is slightly more informal. Sometimes it implies that the arrival was unsure. I didn't think he would show up, but he did. Mark was a tall man with sawdust on his jacket and a calm demeanor. He didn't say much at first. He just walked around the shop, tapping the walls and inspecting the floorboards. After 10 minutes, he took out a notebook. "Well," Mark said, "I can see the potential, but I have to point out a few issues." To point out is a crucial communication skill. It means to draw attention to a fact or something visible. If you are in a meeting and you notice a mistake in the data, you need to point it out. Physically, you might use your finger to point, but metaphorically, you are using words to direct someone's focus. Mark walked to the window. "The frames are rotted. We need to replace them. And the electrical wiring is outdated. We can't just patch it. We have to rip it out." To rip out means to remove something with force, usually something that is fixed in place like a page from a book, or in this case, wiring from a wall. It suggests a complete removal. Sarah felt a knot in her stomach. "How much will this cost?" she asked. Mark did some quick calculations. For the roof, the windows, and the wiring, you're looking at about $15,000. Sarah felt like the floor was tilting. She hadn't counted on spending that much. To count on means to expect something to happen or to rely on it. She had counted on a simple paint job. She hadn't counted on a major construction project. I don't know if I have that much," Sarah admitted. "The costs are really starting to add up." Let's look at add up. Literally, it means to calculate a total sum. $10 plus $10 adds up to $20. But we often use it to describe costs increasing gradually until they become a large problem. Small expenses add up quickly. We also use the negative phrase, "it doesn't add up," to mean a situation doesn't make sense or seems suspicious. For Sarah, however, the problem was purely mathematical. The numbers were adding up too fast. She sat on a crate, looking defeated. "I might have to call off the whole project." To call off means to cancel an event that has been planned. You can call off a meeting, call off a wedding, or call off a search. It is final. Mark looked at her kindly. "Don't call it off yet. Maybe we can figure something out." Figure out is one of the top 10 most important phrasal verbs in English. It means to solve a problem or understand a situation by thinking about it. It involves a mental process. "I can't figure out why my computer is broken." We need to figure out a solution. Mark sat down on a crate opposite her. "We can cut back on the non-essentials. You don't need new hardwood floors. We can sand and polish the old ones. And I can teach you how to do the painting yourself, so you don't have to pay a painter." To cut back or cut down means to reduce the amount or quantity of something, usually to save money or for health reasons. I need to cut back on sugar. The company is cutting back on travel expenses. Sarah listened. So, you think we can do it for 10,000? If we work together, yes, Mark said. But you'll have to chip in with the labor. To chip in means to contribute help, money, or energy to a joint cause. If you buy a birthday gift for a colleague, everyone in the office might chip in $5. Here, Mark meant Sarah had to chip in with her physical work. Sarah nodded slowly. She would have to dip into her emergency savings, but she could do it. To dip into money means to spend part of a supply of money that you were saving for a different purpose. It implies you are reluctant to use it. I had to dip into my vacation fund to pay for the car repairs. Okay, Sarah said, standing up and shaking his hand. Let's do it. When can we start? I can fit you in starting Thursday, Mark said. To fit someone in means to find time to see them or do a job for them within a busy schedule. The doctor can fit you in at 3 p.m. Thursday arrived and the renovation began in earnest. For the next 3 weeks, Sarah and Mark worked side by side. It was exhausting but satisfying. They started by taking down the old, rotted shelves. To take down means to dismantle a structure or remove something from a high place. Please take down that picture. Then they began to put up the new drywall. To put up is the opposite. It means to construct or attach to a vertical surface. You put up a fence, put up a shelf, or put up a poster. Working so closely with someone, you really get to know them. Sarah found that she and Mark got along very well. To get along, or in British English, get on, means to have a harmonious, friendly relationship. I get along with my boss. My brothers don't get along. One rainy afternoon, they were taking a coffee break. They were sitting on the floor, covered in dust. Mark asked Sarah about her life in Chicago. Why did you really leave? He asked. Was it just the work? Sarah hesitated. She didn't usually talk about her personal life. She found it hard to open up. To open up means to start talking about your feelings and private thoughts. It suggests removing a barrier. But Mark seemed trustworthy. It wasn't just the work, Sarah said. My life felt empty. I was just chasing money. I wanted to create something that would live on. To live on means to continue to exist or be remembered, usually after the person who created it is gone. Her legacy will live on. Mark nodded. I get that. That's why I build things. Wood lasts. They shared a moment of understanding. Sarah felt her stress die down. To die down means to become less strong or intense, usually referring to sound, wind, or emotion. The storm died down. The gossip died down. Just then, Sarah's phone rang. It was the supplier for the new books. Sarah listened and her face went pale. What do you mean? She asked. You promised them by Monday. She listened for another minute, then hung up, frustrated. The delivery has fallen through. To fall through is used when a plan or arrangement fails to happen. It collapses. We were going to buy the house, but the deal fell through. This is a very common business phrase. Why? Mark asked. The truck broke down. They are saying the shipment will be held up for 2 weeks. To hold up, often used in the passive, be held up, means to delay or obstruct. I was held up in traffic. The project is held up by paperwork. We can't open without books, Sarah cried. We've already printed the flyers for the opening date. This is going to mess everything up. We learned mess up earlier, meaning to make a mistake. But here it means to cause disorder or ruin a plan. The rain messed up our picnic. Mark stood up and brushed the dust off his jeans. Okay, calm down. Let's think this through. To think something through means to consider all the possible details or consequences of a situation before acting. It implies careful consideration. We can't get the new books, Mark said. But what about the old ones? The ones you cleared out in the beginning? Those? Sarah asked. I was going to give them away. They are used. Used books are vintage, Mark smiled. They are classic. Why don't we set up a classics corner? We can sell them at a discount until the new stock arrives. To set up means to arrange or organize a system or structure. You set up a meeting, set up a business, or set up a display. Sarah thought about it. It wasn't the perfect plan, but it could work. It would save the opening day. Mark, she said, you are a genius. I know, he grinned. Now, help me lift up this beam. To lift up is a literal phrasal verb, to raise something to a higher position. But notice the pattern again. Up implies movement away from the ground. By the end of the month, the shop was transformed. The smell of mildew was gone, replaced by the scent of fresh pine wood and coffee beans. Sarah had decided to install a small espresso machine. The costs had gone up slightly over budget, but she had managed to scrape by. To scrape by means to manage to live or succeed with very little money or difficulty. You have just enough, but no surplus. I was unemployed for 6 months, just scraping by. Sarah stood at the counter, polishing the wood. Mark was packing up his tools. The job was done. It looks amazing, Sarah said. It really came together. To come together means to start working successfully or to combine well to form a whole. The team really came together in the final quarter. It did, Mark said. He paused at the door. So I guess I'll be off then. To be off means to leave or depart. I'm off to work. Sarah felt a sudden pang of sadness. She had gotten used to having him around. She didn't want him to just walk away. Wait, she said. I still need to pay you for the final week. And I was wondering if you wanted to stick around for a coffee on the house. To stick around means to stay in a place a little longer than necessary. It's casual and friendly. Can you stick around after the meeting? Mark smiled, putting his tool bag down. I'd love to stick around. The morning of the grand opening arrived with a clear blue sky. Sarah's alarm clock rang at 5 a.m. Usually she would hit snooze, but today she jumped up immediately. To jump up means to stand up quickly, full of energy. Nerves and excitement were mixing in her stomach. She showered and stood in front of her mirror. She had bought a new dress for the occasion. She decided to try it on. To try on means to put on a piece of clothing to see if it fits or looks good. This is essential shopping vocabulary. Can I try this on in a size medium? Sarah zipped it up. It fit perfectly. She proceeded to put on her shoes and a little bit of makeup. Remember, Put on is the action of dressing yourself. It applies to clothes, jewelry, makeup, and even perfume. She drove to the shop, her heart pounding. When she arrived, she saw that Mark had already been there. He had set out a sign on the sidewalk. To set out means to arrange or display things for people to see. He had also hung up some balloons. Sarah unlocked the door. The smell of fresh coffee and old paper greeted her. She walked around, making sure everything was ready. She laid out the cookies on a tray near the register. To lay out means to spread things out on a flat surface, usually in an organized way. You might lay out your clothes for the next day, or lay out a picnic blanket. At 9 a.m., she flipped the sign to open. For the first 20 minutes, nothing happened. Sarah stood behind the counter, just waiting around. To wait around means to stay in one place and do nothing while you expect something to happen. It implies a bit of boredom or anxiety. I hate waiting around at the airport. Sarah checked her watch. 9:05. 9:10. Had she made a mistake? Then the bell above the door chimed. Mrs. Higgins walked in, followed by 3 of her friends from the knitting club. "We thought we would drop in early to wish you luck," Mrs. Higgins beamed. To drop in is very similar to drop by. It means to pay a casual, short visit. "I was in the neighborhood, so I thought I'd drop in." Suddenly, more people started to arrive. A young couple walked in to browse. A mother with 2 children entered, looking for children's books. The shop began to fill up. To fill up means to become full. The theater is filling up quickly. Sarah was busy. She helped a customer pick out a mystery novel. To pick out means to choose or select one item from a group. "That's a great tie. Who picked it out for you?" The customer was happy and decided to take it. By noon, the line for the register was stretching to the back of the room. Sarah couldn't believe it. The business was really taking off. This is a fantastic idiom. When a plane leaves the ground, it takes off. We use this metaphorically for businesses, careers, or ideas. If something becomes successful very quickly, we say it is taking off. Her singing career took off after she went on TV. Sarah's bookstore was taking off right in front of her eyes. She had to work fast to keep up with the customers. To keep up with means to move or work at the same speed as someone or something else. If the demand is high, it is hard to keep up with it. Sarah was scanning books, making coffee, and chatting all at once. She was barely keeping up with the rush. Mark saw she was overwhelmed and jumped behind the counter to help. "I'll handle the coffee," he said. "You stick to the books." To stick to means to continue doing one specific thing and not change to something else. Stick to the plan. Mark wanted her to focus on her specialty. Around 2 p.m., a man walked in looking for the special edition of The Great Gatsby that Sarah had advertised on the flyer. Sarah looked at the shelf. It was empty. "I'm so sorry," she said. "We have sold out." To sell out means to sell the entire supply of a product so that there are none left. The concert tickets sold out in 10 minutes. While it is disappointing for the customer, it is great news for the business owner. Sarah had sold out of her best items on day 1. The day flew by in a blur. Finally, at 6 p.m., the last customer left. Sarah locked the door and leaned against it, exhaling a long breath. She was tired, but it was a good tired. It wasn't the burned out feeling she had in Chicago. This was the feeling of hard work that pays off. To pay off means to yield good results or success after a period of effort. All your studying finally paid off. Sarah looked at the empty shelves and the full cash register. Her risk had paid off. Mark was wiping down the coffee machine. He looked over at her. "You did good, Sarah." "We did good," she corrected him. They sat down on the comfortable chairs in the classics corner to wind down. To wind down means to relax gradually after a period of excitement or work. Imagine a clockwork toy slowing down. That is winding down. They sat in silence for a moment, enjoying the peace. "I've been meaning to bring something up," Mark said, looking a bit nervous. To bring up a topic means to introduce it into a conversation. "I didn't want to bring up politics at dinner." "What is it?" Sarah asked. "Well," Mark rubbed the back of his neck. "I know I was just supposed to be the contractor, but I've really enjoyed working here. I was wondering if you need a permanent partner to help run the place?" Sarah smiled. She had been hoping he would ask that. "I think that would work out perfectly." To work out means to have a good result or to develop in a successful way. "I hope the new job works out for you." Sarah looked around the shop. She began to look back on the last 6 months. To look back on means to think about the past, usually with a sense of reflection. She thought about the day she walked out of Mr. Henderson's office. She thought about the lonely drive to Oak Haven. She thought about the dust and the broken roof. She realized she had changed. She had grown up. Now, usually, grow up refers to a child becoming an adult. "I grew up in France." But we also use it to describe emotional maturation. Sarah felt she had finally become the person she was meant to be. She was no longer running away. She was building something. She felt ready to settle down. To settle down implies establishing a stable life, often involving buying a house, getting married, or staying in one place for a long time. For years, Sarah had been restless. Now she wanted to stay in Oak Haven. She wanted to settle down here. "What are you thinking about?" Mark asked. "I'm just looking forward to tomorrow," Sarah said softly. To look forward to is one of the most positive and useful phrasal verbs in the English language. It means to feel happy and excited about something that is going to happen in the future. Grammatically, please be careful. It is followed by a noun or a gerund, verb plus ing. You say, "I look forward to the party," or "I look forward to seeing you." You never say, "I look forward to see you." That is a very common mistake. Sarah was looking forward to the future. She was looking forward to opening the doors again, to smelling the coffee, and to seeing the neighbors. "Me too," Mark said. "We should probably wrap things up, though. It's getting late." To wrap up means to finish an activity or bring something to a conclusion. Let's wrap up this meeting. It comes from the idea of wrapping a gift, finishing the package. Sarah stood up and grabbed her keys. They turned off the lights, but this time it wasn't a dark, scary darkness. It was a peaceful quiet. The shop was sleeping, ready for another day. They walked out into the cool evening air. Sarah locked the door. She looked at the sign, Willow Creek Books. It wasn't just a sign anymore. It was her life. She had gone through so much to get here, but she had come out stronger on the other side. To come out in this context means to emerge from a difficult situation with a specific result. He came out of the divorce a happier man. Sarah and Mark walked down the street together, and as they walked, Sarah knew that no matter what problems came up in the future, she could handle them. Because she knew the language of resilience. She knew how to keep on, how to hold on, and how to look forward. And that, my friends, is the end of our story. We have officially wrapped up the Old Bookstore. Take a deep breath. Do you realize what you have just done? You haven't just listened to a story. You have been exposed to over 75 of the most common, high-frequency phrasal verbs in the English language. You experienced them in context, which is the secret to making them stick. We saw Sarah hand in her resignation, call in help, run out of money, figure out solutions, and finally watch her dreams take off. So, what is the next step for you? This script is long. It is dense. You cannot absorb 100% of it in one listen. My advice is to listen to this series again. But this time, I want you to be an active participant. When I give you a definition, pause the audio. Write it down. When I ask you to shadow a sentence, speak it out loud. Do not be shy. Your voice is the tool that carves these words into your memory. Also, try to use just one of these verbs today. If you are going to the gym, tell yourself, I'm going to work out. If you are cleaning your kitchen, say, I'm going to clean up. If you are excited about the weekend, say, I'm looking forward to Saturday. Small steps add up to big results. Thank you so much for joining me on this masterclass. I hope you enjoyed the story of Sarah, Mark, and Mrs. Higgins. It has been a pleasure to be your guide. This is Elena from English in Moments. Keep practicing, keep learning, and remember, every master was once a beginner who decided not to give up. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.